Hello, this is Joe. It's cold and it's raining outside, so today I am going to make my favorite soup, sour pork soup. Okay, here are the ingredients for the sour soup. The sour component will be from the juice of tamarind juice. I don't always find this, but I found this in one of the Asian store in Georgia, so I went and bought 2 of this. Now whenever I don't have this tamarind juice, I use lemon. Those are the 2 sour components I use to making my sour soup. And so don't worry if you can't find this. Lemon is very, very good. It gives the citrusy sour flavor in your soup. And we have pork, and we have some peppers. I don't have jalapeno peppers today, otherwise I would have some jalapeno on this, but I'm using a regular sweet pepper, and tomato and onion. And we did some harvest yesterday, and I was able to pick a lot of young tender leaves of my sweet potatoes. So that will be the vegetable or the green for this soup. I also have my chicken broth. Now what I'm going to do with this pork is I'm going to boil this on a separate pot, just so I could get rid of some of any impurities that might be left in here. Okay, so let me go ahead and prep all of these ingredients, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, at the back burner the pork is boiling, and I'm gonna be transferring that pork here so it could continue cooking with the rest of these ingredients. And I will strain the broth that is in that pot, and I will be using that as well. But for now I'm going to use a little bit of this broth here. I'm gonna start these ingredients with the broth, and I'm going to put all of this chopped up ingredients, onion, peppers. We'll put a little bit of black pepper in here. Okay, so these sweet potato leaves have been washed twice right after we harvested it yesterday. And what I'm doing now is making sure that I'm only picking the very tender part of these leaves. Anything that show or feel any kind of resistance as you snap it, you have to get rid of that, because that will be fibrous, you know, and you don't want that, especially if you're first experience with the sweet potato. You want the most tender part of the sweet potato, and you can add the stem, but as long as it snaps easily like that, that will give you the best flavor with your first experience with sweet potato leaves. Okay, and here's a tip on making sure that you got your any of your greens clean. You make sure that you have a bowl with lots of water, and then put your vegetable in there, kind of swish it around, and any impurities, any sand would be at the bottom. It will settle at the bottom. Now I will transfer all this meat with the aromatics, so that the broth of this boiled pork here will be strained, and I could use the broth and add it to the rest of this soup here. So you don't have to do this process where you boil the meat separately. I just like to be able to make sure that I get that good clean taste of pork in my soup, and by boiling it I'll be able to make sure of that, and I can still use the broth and add it to the rest of the soup later on. Okay, so we'll just let that, oops, pardon me, all the noise and commotion. We'll just let that keep on simmering until the meat is really nice and tender, okay? And then halfway through the cooking process, I will be adding the sour component, okay? I want it to come to a rolling boil for now, and then I will go ahead and add the tamarind juice. Okay, depend on how sour you like the soup. Add as much as you want, okay? I like my soup very sour, this type of soup. And another name that I know in the Philippines, they call it as sinigang. Sinigang can either be with pork or fish, okay, or even beef, but this time I'm using pork. Okay, so here's two optional ingredients. If you want to add more spice to your soup, you could either sprinkle some of your adobo seasoning or seasoned salt, either or. And in my soup I will add a little bit of both, okay? I want to balance it with some spice. Now that's optional, it's all up to you when it comes to the spiciness of your soup. Okay, as you can see, the meat is almost falling off the bone, so you know it's tender. Now I'm going to add the sweet potato leaves. Put it on the side. I think I had too much, but well, greens always look like a whole lot when you first put it in, and then it just kind of disappear in the soup when it started wilting. So no, it looks like I have a lot, but I don't. Okay, there. And if you guess that I'm going to eat this with rice, you guess right. I mean, you can eat this plain just as it is, you know, soup, or with bread, but this is a soup I grew up with, and we also call this sinigang, and it's always served with white rice. Okay, so that's why I'm going to serve this with. Okay, let me see. Let's see how is the salt. Nope, I'm not adding any more. It's perfect. I mean, very slightly you could add a pinch, but to me, that's good enough. It's perfect. Okay, let's just bring it to a boil so that the greens is nice and tender. So here's my sour pork soup with the greens that you see there are sweet potato leaves, and the sour component is tamarind. I'm serving it with rice, and I'm getting ready to eat lunch. So, manganta mo.